Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Roberto Corona. I am an Italian anthroposopher and astrologer, and in this video we're going to talk about the upcoming full moon in Sagittarius on May 31, a very intense moon that involves the participation of three fixed stars, all three of the nature of Mars, Antares, Aldebaran, and Pollux. Now with this full moon, we officially enter the last third of the spring season, marked by the air element of Gemini, which brings our attention back to the ether of light. The light, at least in our northern hemisphere, is gradually increasing in intensity, accompanying us upwards to reach the peaks of the summer solstice. I also include down below the virtue to meditate on during the Sun's transit in Gemini, indicated by Rudolf Steiner, that is perseverance that becomes faithfulness. As always, let's take a look at the calendar for the latest news from the sky. We have a series of ingresses starting on May 17 with the ingress of Mercury into Gemini, its diurnal domicile, and the following day Mercury conjoins Uranus. On May 18, Mars enters Taurus, the zodiac sign of its exile, and on May 19, Venus also changes sign, entering Cancer. And finally, on May 21st, the Sun enters Gemini to also conjoin Uranus the following day. And note that the chart of the full moon still features the Uranus-Sun conjunction. Finally, we want to point out the square between Mars and Pluto on May 26 because it still features in the full moon chart. Finally, on the holiday front, as the moon gradually increases in light, we find the festival of Pentecost on May 24, and this holiday is especially important for a full moon in Sagittarius because, as we will see, this moon involves spiritual communities. And with Pentecost, we enter precisely into this topic of the relationship between the individual and individual freedom and spiritual communities themselves. Okay, let's tackle the chart of the full moon in Sagittarius. The moon is located at 9 degrees and 55 minutes Sagittarius in the stereo image of the Scorpion, and specifically in the very heart of the constellation, that is the star Antares. The moon is right on Antares. Antares is the antagonist of Ares, a star of the nature of Mars and Jupiter, and this is the first of the three martial stars involved. Now the Sun and the Moon, of course, they are in opposition. This is a full moon. Together they close in a beautiful cradle configuration. The chart, as you can see, we have a series of sextiles and trines, and these beautiful aspects are very harmonious, and they involve the great minor trine between Pluto and Uranus. It is a great minor trine because it includes two sextiles with the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. Now, specifically, the Sun is still in conjunction with Uranus, but it is also aligned with the star Aldebaran. Aldebaran is the eye of the constellation of Taurus. It is here, and it is the second star of the nature of Mars that the chart features. Now the moon, on the other hand, is in mutual reception with Jupiter. And this is because Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, hence the ruler of the moon is in Cancer. And Cancer in turn is the zodiac sign ruled by the moon. So basically they are exchanging their domiciles. This is called a mutual reception and creates a beautiful collaboration between Jupiter and the moon. Not only that, but Jupiter is aligned with the star Pollux, that is the head of the immortal twin up here, right? And this is the third star of the nature of Mars that the chart features. In turn, Jupiter is also making this beautiful conjunction with Venus. It is a wide conjunction, but is very, very important, not only because we have the conjunction between the benefic planets, but also because the chart features from a heliocentric perspective a strong relationship between Venus and Mars. Now here in this chart, this relationship is also expressed because, as you can see, Venus is making a sextile aspect with Mars in Taurus. Now, Mars, in turn, is creating one of the most challenging aspects of the chart. I'm referring to the square between Mars and Pluto that you can see here. Finally, we note that the last new moon in Taurus also featured a mutual reception between its ruler, that was Venus, and Mercury. And that it also occurred, that new moon occurred in conjunction with another challenging fixed star, and that was Algol. And we will see what this entails from a spiritual perspective. But now let's tackle the meanings of the chart, starting from the physical significations. Now, a full moon in Taurus is all about growth, expansion, overcoming our limitations in order to go beyond them and evolve. And since Cancer is involved, these limitations could be related to our house, to our family, as well as our homeland. From a personal perspective, this moon invites us to overcome limits related to real estate, our property, especially if they involve family dynamics. Now, the symbolism of moving far away stands out in particular and may be valid for some of you. On top of that, this limitation could be related to language and culture because of Sagittarius. Now, on a material level, these issues are linked to disputed resources or disputed property, economic issues in general. And why is that? Because Mars is in Taurus, and Taurus is all about resources. And again, Mars is making a square aspect with Pluto. Now, the conjunction of the Sun and Uranus, together with the presence of 3 martial stars, also causes a certain amount of unpredictability, and we have a series of harmonious aspects in the chart, so they will somehow resolve these issues, but not without our active participation and effort. Now, from a collective standpoint, on the ongoing war fronts, Sagittarius could also lead to defensive moves of conquest and expansion, mainly aimed, I would say, at securing diplomatic leverage to negotiate a truce. Now, we've been discussing about it, and in this regard, Venus's participation is crucial, since not only Venus is in conjunction with Jupiter, so we have the mutual reception between Jupiter and the Moon, we have the conjunction between the benefic planets, but this Venus is important because she is also ruling Mars. Now, Venus, she is the ruler of Taurus. Mars is in Taurus. This means that Mars is ruled by Venus. And this means that Venus could succeed in completing what she started with the last new moon in Taurus. That is, consolidating a new form of stability despite Uranus and the martial stars. From a soul perspective, the full moon in Sagittarius invites us to expand our wisdom and knowledge. And in this sense, Cancer's involvement invites us to deepen and better understand our emotions, which in turn enables us to take good care of ourselves, yes, but also of other people. And these are significations definitely very dear to Cancer. Now, the conjunction of the 2 benefic planets in this regard allows us to treasure the conflicts and difficulties that we have mentioned so that they are not wasted, but can become life experiences capable of helping us grow and mature. The fact that Venus rules Mars in Taurus also allows us to contain the negative effects of such conflicts and direct them towards harmony and dialogue. And in this sense, speaking of dialogue, we have also Mercury in Gemini that can be quite helpful. In fact, it can foster communication, even though I would say Mercury is still rather disconnected in the chart. Now, from a spiritual perspective, the moon shines in the stereo image of the Scorpion, and in astrosophy, Scorpion is the constellation of the so-called initiates, that are those human beings who have reached a level of evolution enough to become agents of the Holy Spirit. Now, in this sense, the full moon in Sagittarius represents spiritual communities that gather around this figure, this very important spiritual teachers, and who act together to create a counterweight to the forces of evil. Starry Scorpio, in fact, requires the confrontation with evil, and specifically with the fixed star Antares, we find the symbolism of protection against demonic forces. Now, this symbolism is also confirmed by the last new moon in Taurus, which was taking place of another malefic star, Algol. Algol is the eye of Medusa, known, however, also for its powerful protective effect. And it is no coincidence that in the past the image of Medusa's head was placed on shields as an image to protect against the enemy. In other words, this full moon realizes and brings to full expression that theurgic potential that we've discussed in the video of the last new moon in Taurus. Now, this is also confirmed from the heliocentric point of view. That is, from the point of view of the sun, which, remember, is the divine point of view. In fact, in the heliocentric chart, we find Venus, which in astrosophy corresponds to the sphere of the spiritual mysteries, that is the sphere that elevates us towards the divine. Venus is in conjunction with the aphelion of Mars. Now, the aphelion is the point of maximum distance of Mars from the Sun, and it is always a critical point in a planetary sphere as it corresponds to the point of maximum distance, rebellion, detachment of a planet from the center of divine activity that in our solar system is the Sun. Here, therefore, we find the effect of the sphere of the spiritual mysteries, the effect of heliocentric Venus acting on the sphere of Mars to transform it, to redeem it, and somehow to transcend it. Therefore, the planetary alignments with the three stars of a martial nature that we've discussed thus seal this intervention that is carried on, of course, by those who have the spiritual power to operate at this level, that are the initiates, of course. However, we must not underestimate the help of those who actively participate within spiritual communities. They can be visible or invisible spiritual communities, because what we cannot do alone, we can still do together. As always, thanks for watching. If you want to support my work, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell not to miss out on future astrological insights. I am Roberto Corona. See you in the next video.